Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is our Scottish councils, who despite putting up everybody's council tax again, have got between them about £4 billion sitting in slush funds. Now this story came out this beginning of March, and I've been meaning to do this video for a while, but I was reminded about it on Twitter today when someone sent me a DM with the article from the 4th of March. And it's quite horrific because all the Scottish councils are putting up council tax. Yet all the Scottish councils have got surplus. And the total is, in some cases, £10,000 and more per person in their council areas. And you think, well, what are you putting up for? And why have you got it in the first place? So I'm going to read out the article and then I'm going to give my spin on it at the end, giving you my personal opinion and why they're doing this. So the article is Scottish councils have a £4 billion in cash reserves and are still hiking up council tax. Express investigates, it's for the Scottish Daily Express by the way, continue our series looking at local authority funding in wake of the record council tax rises. We bring you the brand new research from Taxpayers Alliance. Half of Scottish councils saw an increase in their usable cash reserves last year, despite record-breaking hikes in council tax, which have been agreed in recent weeks. Research by Taxpayers Alliance, TPA, examined town hall accounts from across Great Britain, with many local authorities claiming to be drawing down their reserves in order to stay solvent, but apart from the Scottish ones. Council reserves fall into two categories, usable and unusable. Usable reserves are additionally divided into funds that can be used for certain purposes, i.e. they're ring-fenced for other things. But at least part of these funds can be used to freeze, cut or limit council tax increases, unallocated reserves as they are called. In Scotland, 27 councils supplied figures for their total cash reserves at the end of 23-24, which amounted to a staggering £3.9 billion. However, using figures from the previous years for the 5 councils who didn't put in their numbers, the full total was likely to stand at £4.2 billion. 16 councils increased their reserves in the 12 months to April 2024. That was Aberdeen, Aberdeenshire, Argyll and Bute. In Argyll and Bute, that's an odd one. They've got like 120 odd million, right? City of Edinburgh, Dumfries and Galloway, Dundee City, East Ayrshire, East Renfrewshire, Falkirk, Highland, North Lanarkshire, Orkney Islands, Perth and Kinross, Shetland Islands and Stirling. 2 councils had usable reserves in excess of 10,000, that was Shetland Islands and Orkneys. The latter local authority agreed a council tax increase of 15%. On Tuesday, on average, Scottish councils have £1,398 per resident in their cash reserves, although this is somewhat skewed by the huge sums kept on hand by the Northern Islands. So then it goes to it gives you a table of all these councils. And like the least one, I think, is about 30 million. The worst one, the one with the smallest reserve, is 34 million. That's Clackmannanshire. But they, oddly enough, were the second highest increase in council tax increase. They were at 13%. The biggest reserve is City of Edinburgh, which is 429 million in reserve. And they put the council tax up by 8%, despite having all this slush. Edinburgh had the highest reserves, followed by Shetland of 403 million, North Lanarkshire 343 million. Cash-strapped Glasgow Council drew down its reserves from 566 million to only 216 now, but still put our taxes up. The TPA is calling for a number of reforms to local government finances, including greater transparency for residents to understand how the taxes have been spent, and expansion of the referendum criteria to curb the excessive accumulation of reserves and giving councils more flexibility in how they use those reserves. Simon Lee, the policy analyst at Taxpayer Alliance, said local taxpayers will rightly be concerned that some councils are filling their coffers at the expense of residents. For many years, town halls have consistently increased council tax and justified the rises with claims of financial hardship. These figures reveal that a significant number of local authorities are hoarding cash while local people struggle to make ends meet. Ministers must look to curb the practice of building excess reserves, while councils need to provide transparency for the residents and keep taxes to a minimum. So that's the story. Now my spin on it. I believe there's one reason and one reason alone. And it's not all the council's fault, because if there's legislation that stops them spending the reserves, then you think, well, why have we got that as well? Why have we got these restrictions? And I believe it's one simple thing, and that is independence. Because if we keep telling everybody the world's bad and it's Westminster's fault, as we've done for like a decade, then people will think, well, let's get away from that. And these are that £4 billion can make real differences to people's pockets and therefore people's lives in Scotland, because we can do one of two things with this excess. We can either stop increasing council tax, reduce it, or spend it on things that will improve people's lives, like potholes, like bin collections, like all these things that the councils do and what the councils have got in their power. So if we don't have these, regardless of whether we have smaller council tax bills or not, we would at least see benefits. Give you an example. Glasgow City Council's offloading all its stock of buildings at, what do you call them? Community centres and things, right? Just giving them to folk because they've got no money. Now, if we kept them, put some money into them and let the communities use them, then we would all see a benefit. But we don't. We're hoarding cash. And I don't see it being an accident. And I think up here particularly, it will help people go, I kind of think we should have independence, right? Because we're living in squalor. We've got rat-infested streets. We've got potholes everywhere. We've got stupid laws for the bins being collected, right? Where you just can't really get your bins collected. The processes are mental, right? But we always find money for like stupid things, like LGBTQ things, and there's a thing going on now. I put a tweet about it today. This bagpipe thing that we're paying for, and I looked at a thing. Glasgow's going to be 150 years old this year, since it became a borough. And we're celebrating. I only found out we're a quarter of the way through the year. And this is me just finding out. A guy lives in Glasgow. And I looked at the stuff this new thing called Glasgow 850. That's the thing, another body we've set up, right, to celebrate this 850 years. But I've never heard it up until today. And I looked at the stuff that they're using to celebrate. And then almost every one of them was things like Transmit Festival, which there's a Transmit every year. So how do we now need this other thing to give a thing the money that in the Glasgow Comedy Festival, I think it's on its 12th year. Well, this bodies gave them money, which is for your and I's pocket. And you go, what for? All these things have been on the go. Now there's a couple of things that I'm sort of new, but they're quite small. The bigger ones are all pre-existing events. That's it. Glasgow 850s now suddenly help give some money, and you're like, they got the money's last year without your money. So it's a bit of a farce, and all this sort of nonsense that doesn't really affect anybody's life in a positive at all. We could be doing with banning these and looking at things that do affect people's lives. But there we go. If you enjoyed the video and you want other people to see it, 3 things can help. Likes, comments and shares. And if you do one of them, 2 of them or 3 of them, you'll help put this video into other people's timelines. If you've not already done so, please consider hitting the subscribe and the notification bell. And at the end of this video, down this corner somewhere, YouTube will put one of my videos that you've not seen that they think matches your viewing stuff, so they might recommend one that you like. But most importantly of all, unless you're the type of people that hoard £4 billion worth of Scottish council taxpayers' money and charge them more year on year, no you. But
everyone else, have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.